that, I want to explain where webinar funnels came from, how they work, and how you can use them in your specific business. So to show you initially, I want to kind of walk you through the layout of what a webinar funnel looks like. Now, it's a very simple process. There's a webinar registration page where you get somebody to register for the webinar. Then there's a confirmation page where you thank them for being registered to the webinar. And with the webinar funnel, typically you're integrating with some third-party webinar software like GoToWebinar or Zoom are the two most popular within the ClickFunnels community. So then the webinar actually happens over there on the other platform. But what's nice is because you can control the registration process and the confirmation process, you're able to get higher conversions and a lot of times sell other products and services before people even come to the webinar, as I'll show you here in a minute. Now, after somebody registers for the webinar and before the webinar starts, what we do is we send them emails that take them to what we call indoctrination pages, where each of these pages gives them a video or some kind of training to get them more excited about what's going to be happening on the web class. And we'll have anywhere from 1 to 3 confirmation pages typically in a normal webinar funnel. And then after the webinar is over, then we usually set up a webinar replay page where we post the webinar replay and we send emails to the people who register for the webinar to go watch the replay before we take it down. And so that's kind of what a basic webinar funnel looks like. Now, if we were to take this and plug in some actual pages, this is kind of what it would look like. First page, they register, then the confirmation page. Here's the indoctrination pages where we send them videos, getting them excited about what's happening, and then the replay page happens at the end. Okay, so the first question I want to answer is, where do webinars actually come from? A lot of people have never even heard that word before they get into ClickFunnels. And so a webinar is basically like a web class. It's like a seminar that's happening on the internet. Now, in the past, the way that I used to sell a lot of products and services is I would go to live events like this. I'd stand in front of 1,000 or 10,000 people, and I would teach them something, and then at the end, I would sell my products or my services. And that's how I made my living for almost a decade. But then fast forward to technology started catching up, making things easier, and now I do most of my business, I do it through webinars where I'm actually at my home or sitting here in my office and there might be 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people registered who are watching from all around the world. I do my same webinar presentation, I teach, I train them, and at the end of it, then I can sell them a product or a service. And so that's kind of what a webinar is a live event, but it's happening on the internet. And what's cool about it is that you can do these and make as much money as you would normally from the comfort of your home, as opposed to having to travel and get hotels and all sorts of other things that go into a traditional live event. Okay. Now, some examples of some webinar funnels. These are just some layouts of some of the ones we've done in the past. This is one where Kaylin, the lady boss. This is another one of our webinar registration pages, and here's another one selling. These are all selling software or trainings or other things. Webinars have been used to sell pretty much everything on planet Earth, from supplements to training courses to consulting to coaching. Webinars work good to sell almost any type of product you can think of. So here is how it works. Okay, the first page, the first step here is to get them to register for the web class. Okay, so that's what the first page in the funnel does. Then the second page, after they've registered for the web class, then you thank them for registering. Sometimes you may make them a special offer, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. But basically, you're thanking them, and then the last page here inside this funnel is where you post the actual replay. So that's kind of how a webinar funnel works. It's very simple and very easy. Okay, so again, here is the layout, and then there's one more piece here I didn't talk about, the indoctrination pages. So indoctrination pages, these are pages we create that usually for me, they have videos where I'm getting people excited about what's happening in the training, and I'm indoctrinating, getting them excited. Some people call these persuasion pages, where you're getting them excited before they actually show up to the web class. And so this is an example of what an indoctrination page may look like. Now, a lot of people do webinars without these. It just helps to kind of increase show-up rate and actually increases people buying something at the end of the webinar because they've been indoctrinated through you, from you through these videos here in the sequence. Okay. So what other products and services work for webinar funnels? Like I said, all sorts of things. You can use it to sell courses, to sell products, to sell software. I've seen people use it to sell supplements, high-end coaching, business practices, services, like pretty much everything you can dream of, you can be sold on an actual webinar. Okay, so here's some of the best practices on how a webinar funnel works. So the first page here, some of the core, most important things. First step, I like to call out who is this webinar actually for? So you notice in this one it says, attention, entrepreneurs, small business owners, online marketers, marketing agencies. So you know this is who it's for. The second step is like having a curiosity-based headline. The more curiosity you have, the more likely someone is to register and more likely they are to actually show up. In fact, when I have a webinar page that's not converting very well, the biggest thing I do is I come back and try to increase the curiosity to get people excited. Okay, so curiosity is the key on a registration page. Now, the second page is where we thank them. Now, on the thank you page, we're not using curiosity nearly as much as a couple other things. First thing is we're thanking them for registering. The second thing is, whereas the first page is all curiosity, the thank you page is all about excitement, getting them excited for what they're about to experience. Okay, if you get them excited here, they're more likely to make sure they show up, to put it on their calendar, to make sure they don't sleep in or forget about it. The more excited you get them here, the more likely they are to show up and participate in the event that you're putting on. And then the last thing, this isn't necessary, but a lot of times what I do on this page is I give them, I make them an offer. We call this a self-liquidating offer. This is where we tell them like, hey, in this example here, I say, go get a free trial of ClickFunnels. Sometimes I might sell a book, or I push them into one of my other funnels where I'm selling a lower ticket product. Now, a lot of times this self-liquidating offer here will actually cover the entire cost, my advertising costs to get people to register for the web class. Now, it's kind of a more advanced thing, and it's not necessary, but I want to kind of put it out there for those of you guys who may want to do something like that on your thank you pages. Now the next page, obviously at this point, like we said before, is that webinar now is going to happen in some third-party service like GoToWebinar or Zoom, and then after you get the recording of that presentation back, then you create a replay page, and usually we'll post that replay page up for 24 to 48 hours. We'll send emails to everybody who registered and told them, now go watch this video before it disappears, and that gets people to actually go and watch and consume your presentation.